Hey guys. Hey guys.
Hey.
Welcome back to Plots with a Twist,
Where we discuss books.
amongst other things. And today we wanted to get in a holiday spirit.
We
Got
got
a
our
eggnog, spiked of course. And we wanted to, since it's the end of the year, wanted to get into basically our top reads of the year and discuss some of the, not really some of the plot points, but just a brief statement of what the book was about and why we liked it. And let's get into it.
You want to go first?
Okay, I actually put mine in order. And I don't have all the physical books on me because a lot of them we got at the library.
Yes. Take advantage of your local libraries, guys.
Yes.
They'll save you money.
Yeah. Unless you get fines like Asia. But so my number 5 choice, I will say this is one I read this year. This is Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste. How do you say her last
Girl, I
name?
don't know. Never said it.
Little Fires Everywhere
It's a good book.
came out a couple of years ago. It was on like Reese Witherspoon's book list, book club list. And it was just, I saw it a lot of places and I was very intrigued by it. The title in itself is very much Little Fires Everywhere because each person has their own little turmoil, and that's what I really enjoyed about it, how it all came together. It's slated to be a show coming out in, I believe, March. So look for more on that because we will try to do some comparisons between the show and the series coming up next year. So look out for that. But yeah, I just enjoyed the overall story. Not the best thing I read this year, but it was a solid read. So that's my number 5 pick. Your number 5.
Oh, are we doing it like that? Okay.
I was supposed to go all 5?
Number 5, yeah.
Oh.
I don't know. So I didn't really put mine in order, but number 5 for me would probably be American Spy by, what's her name? Laura Wilkinson. Laura Wilkinson. So, and it was on Obama's like book list for the
His
year.
summer read
but
list, yeah.
we had read it before he came out with his list, so that wasn't why we decided to pick it up. I think I saw it like going around on Instagram, and what intrigued me about it was that it was about like an FBI agent. You know, I'm all into that type of genre. And the main character is black, and she's from Harlem, so you know that's where I'm from. If y'all ain't know. But yeah, so that really like is what got me interested in the book, and I really enjoyed the story. If you have a chance, pick it up. I think it's the author's first book.
Yeah, that's her first novel.
It's
Yeah,
her first novel, so and it was a really good book. I think I gave it a 3 or 4 stars. So that's my number 5 for the out of all the books I read this year.
All right, my number 4 out of all the books I read this year, I don't have it on hand, but it's Cersei by Madeline Miller. And
That's a good book too.
I really enjoyed the story. I didn't think it was something I would enjoy because you know what, I'm lying. My introduction to like Greek mythology, of course, was in high school along with like everybody else's with the Odyssey and the Iliad and all that. And I didn't enjoy reading those, but I enjoyed the idea of Greek mythology. I do play video games and I do love God of War. So that was the other thing that I was like, okay, I think I might like it, but I'm not sure. So in literature form, for me, Greek mythology really hasn't been a hit. So this one actually was, and I was pleasantly surprised. It's just the story of, I described her as like the Forrest Gump of the Greek mythology world because she kind of was in isolation, but she had all these dealings with well-known Greek figures. And I just enjoyed so much about the story. It had bits and pieces where it dragged, but other than that, it was just a great adventure.
Okay, so for me, number 4 will probably be, and I have this book, Becoming by the one and only Michelle Obama. So I got this book as like a Secret Santa gift from work last year. So yeah, December last year, and just didn't jump to read it. And when I finally started to read it, then it was kind of like a slow start. But then when I started reading, like really getting into it, I was like, wow, this is really good. I learned a lot about the Obamas, obviously about Michelle. Like I didn't know, because I'm not super political. So I didn't know like she was a lawyer. She went to law school. First of all, and I know people gonna kill me. I didn't even know she was from Chicago. So I know, like, I didn't know anything. So like her just talk about her growing up in Chicago with her parents. Like it goes through like obviously her whole life from like, you know, being a child and figuring out you know, her place in the world and just figuring out what she wanted to do, and then meeting Barack and falling in love. And then she talks about how her and Barack were both complete people when they got into a relationship. So that's how it was like. And I was like, you know what, Michelle, that's a gem. But no, this is a really good book. She's a really, really good writer, like most lawyers are. Really good writer, easy to follow. So she came out with like a journal.
I saw that.
I bought it.
Oh,
I got it, off Amazon. So I said I'm gonna start doing that as like a guided journal. So that's my number 4 for the year, Becoming by Michelle Obama. Pick it up if you haven't already.
Do we have the same number 3?
What's your number 3? Well, how many I got? No.
Okay.
Because I didn't put mine in order, so you're making me thinking about it right now.
So my number 3 is 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. It's another library one, so don't have it on hand. But so I mentioned before that Taylor Jenkins Reid, or by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Taylor Jenkins Reid is a like excellent author. Everything I've read by her has been great.
Great fiction. Great fiction.
Now the first, I don't know if that was her first book, but the first book I read by her was Maybe in Another Life.
Me too.
A few years ago, and that one was very interestingly told. So when I came across 7 Husbands, it was shortly after I read what was the book I read by Elizabeth Gilbert? What's
Committed?
No, what's her fiction?
Eat, Pray, Love?
Girl,
I don't know what she's talking about.
the one you didn't read, City of Girls.
Oh, girl, I forgot about that quick. I'm like,
so I read 7
City of
Husbands
Girls.
shortly after I read City of Girls, and they had kind of similar vibes, but I just enjoyed 7 Husbands so much more. So it's about,
I'm gonna read that this year. City of Girls.
yeah. So it's about just this journalist that gets the opportunity to interview the elusive Evelyn Hugo.
She's like a movie star.
Yeah, she's like this, you know, kind of icon.
You know what? That will be my number 3. So we can just do it together.
Yeah, she's kind of like this icon, and rarely does interviews, and so she specifically asks for the journalist Monique, and you don't understand why. And then it's kind of like a plot twisty end where you find out why she wants Monique specifically to interview her, and all the. Is the girl named Monique?
Yeah. I think
Okay.
So. I think so.
Look at that girl.
Okay.
I be remembering stuff sometimes.
I don't.
I really don't, but so yeah, it was just, you know, her going over her 7 marriages. You get to understand why she married so many people. What was it about these different relationships that kind of played their role in her life? So I just loved it. I really enjoyed reading it, and it was like a page turner. Like you really wanted to know what was going to happen, and why, like you wanted to get to the meat and potatoes of it. So it was a good read, and I just really enjoyed it. So that was my number 3. And so now you want to say it's your number 3?
I guess. Yeah, I'm gonna say it's my number 3. Yeah, I enjoy the story as well. I believe I'm the one that found it and told you to read it.
Yes.
Yeah, I just saw, because like the cover was everywhere, and then I read like the synopsis, and it was just talking about and people, like, even more so than that, people just kept saying how good it was. So it's like, okay, you want to see what all the hype is about. But I really enjoy how the story was told through all the, like, the husband she had, and like each relationship she had with them, and what happened in her life at the time. The plot twist, I feel like there were a few.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were each one was, what's it called? How you say it? Like placed in the right way. It wasn't like corny or predictable. So yeah, Taylor Jenkins Reid. She's somebody that from now on, whenever she comes out with a book, I'm gonna at least give it a look and see like what's it about, because her writing style, I don't even know she has a writing style, because we talked about this. Like, she doesn't really write the same in every book, but all her stories are good. So, yeah, that's number 3 for me also.
So, number 2 for me, I do have the book, is On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. So, I read The Hate You Give, and I wanted to read that, but I didn't at the same time because of the synopsis and just feeling like it was going to be like a heavy type of book, even though it's a young adult book. So I was kind of hesitant to read The Hate You Give, and then when I read it, loved it. So when I saw that she had On the Come Up coming out earlier this year, I was like, yes, that has to go on my book list. I have to read that. So read that earlier this year, and it's about a young girl, Bree, I believe her name is. She wants to become a rapper, but she's like a product of her environment. Kind of like the conflict in The Hate You Give. She's torn between like people like wanting her to do these things, but she just wants to do what she wants to do. And you feel the frustration. You feel also the fact that she's 16 and doesn't know how to make, smart decisions. So, I mean, that part of it as a reader, you're like, but you also understand that she's still a child, basically. So I just really enjoyed it. Angie Thomas isn't, like you said, with Taylor Jenkins Reid. She's another one that whenever she has something, I'm definitely going to probably be like, yes, this has to go on the list. Because so far, the two I read from her have been, thumbs up. So that's my number 2.
Okay, so for me, my number 2 is, I don't have the physical book, but it's With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. And I believe that this was her... How
you eggnog so low?
I've been drinking. But, okay, so With the Fire on High, it's about a Afro-Latina girl. She's like a teenager, about to finish high school. She's a young mom, single mom, about to finish high school, and she has this gift for cooking. It's basically like trying to figure out like decisions after high school, dealing with boys, and just dealing with like life decisions at that age. And I really, really, really enjoyed the story from how it was written. I like the language she used. Like, you could tell it's written by a person who actually like speaks like that or is around people like that, because it flows, the conversation flows. I don't know, I just really, really enjoyed the story. And I'm not gonna say I'm not big on young adult, but like sometimes you read stories of like being a teenager and stuff, and it's just like, and it's not that you can't relate, but maybe in your life and time right now you can't relate, so it's not really, it doesn't affect you in the same way. With this story, I didn't feel like that. I felt like I could like really understand what she was going through. And I just really enjoyed the story. I like the subject matter. I like the representation in it. It was everything. So that was my number 2 for the year.
I enjoyed it. It just didn't make my list. So before we get to our top read of the year, I wanted to give an honorable mention to 2 books. You got 2 honorable mentions? Okay. So
No, but I can think of them right now.
One of my honorable mentions is Where the Crawdads Sing. We just recently filmed a review on that.
Check it out if you haven't already.
Right. But I did enjoy the story. I enjoyed it a lot. Just had some little things here and there that weren't major like issues, but just kind of made it where I enjoyed these other stories more. I did want to mention that. And then the other honorable mention I had was Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi, and I can't pronounce her last name. But
y'all seen the book.
Yeah, she's a young up-and-coming Black author. It's a series book, so her second one just came out probably last month. Yeah, I have it on hold at the library. I haven't received it yet. But that I am going to read as soon as I receive it. But it's a fantasy-based book set in Nigeria. It, of course, had different meanings about classism, colorism, things like that, racism, like even though everybody was Black, it just had those undertones of it. So it was very like leaning towards, being very where it has a deeper meaning. But it was just, overall, the story was enjoyable. The only gripe I had was how it ended, because I didn't think it was initially marketed as a series, and it just ended in a way where it's like, you have to read the next one to know the completion of the story, where it's something like a Harry Potter, it's going to be a series, but it's a full story. And that was my only gripe about it. But I did enjoy reading it. It was a page turner, and yeah, it's definitely one I wanted to mention because it is something that people should read.
So my two are, one you put on your list, Little Fires Everywhere. That's a mention for me because I really did enjoy the story. The ending kind of like blew me a little bit, but I did enjoy the story too, so I wanted to mention that one. But Kristen already talked about it. And then the other one is Go Tell It on the Mountain by James Baldwin. I had read that earlier this year, and it's one of his fiction works. If you haven't read any James Baldwin, just do it. Just he has some fiction, some nonfiction, but I've mostly read his fiction, and I enjoy every time. He's a good storyteller. The language he uses, wonderful. So those are my mentions. All so right. Now for number one.
So my number one of the year is, it's a running theme. I have the fiction, you have the nonfiction. We gotta bring it together. You educated.
No, not really.
So my number one of the year was Daisy Jones and the Six. And that's by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So
I didn't read that one. I'm gonna read it. Sure.
So like we mentioned, different writing style each book. And this one, it's slated to be a movie, I believe. And so it very much reads like a movie. Like, oh my God, I just loved how it was told because it's done interview style. So Daisy Jones and the Six is, Daisy Jones was a singer and the Six was a band, and it's about their collaboration, this album they had together, the rise and fall of Daisy Jones and the Six. Like, it's like each line, because it was different people talking, they both had a different perspective, but it was like done one right after another.
Yeah.
So it made it like very humorous in its retelling of like these fictional events of this band. It's classified as a historical fiction, which I can see how, because it does mention a lot of historical figures as far as the music industry as well as events happening around that time. But the events itself are fictional.
Right.
Just like, American Spy is technically a historical, fiction. But yeah, I just love the telling of this group and this singer that came together, and it was moments where I, like, especially towards the end, got teary-eyed, and it wasn't even meant to be that type of book, but it was
all the
right feelings. But even in Seven Husbands, same thing. So I just think Taylor Jenkins Reid is very talented in like picking up the essence of a story, telling you what it's about, making you feel and getting enthralled in the story, and just delivering. Like, I haven't had an issue with anything she's written thus far, and it was my favorite one this year.
So my favorite book this year, and I have it with me, is another nonfiction, More Than Enough by Elaine Welteroth, the former editor-in-chief of Teen Vogue. I think she's like the first or second black editor in Condé Nast history type of thing. So yeah, I actually she had like a book. It wasn't a signing, but like
a book
tour. So she came, her and Mara Brock Akil came and like talked about the book and took questions and stuff. So I went there for that. And I had bought the book prior to that. This book, it's my favorite book this year because basically it says, like, the subtitle is Claiming Space for Who You Are No Matter What They Say. And it basically goes through Elaine's journey of like from like high school to her where she's at now after her editing career, and like this basically just what she had to go through, and like feeling like she was enough to like fill the shoes of the job she's had and how she got there. And it was just very inspiring, and maybe because at the time of my life, like, that's just like what I needed out of like a book, or out of this type of book. Like, it was everything. And I don't know, it's just my favorite because I just feel like it just gave me like a burst of motivation to like go after my dreams and stuff. Very cliche, but it's true. So that was my favorite of the year.
All right. So hopefully we mentioned something that you've enjoyed, or gave you some ideas for future readings. Comment on some of your favorite books you've read this year.
Give us some suggestions.
Right, we'd love to see it. I saw a few online as well that I'm like, I didn't even think about reading that. So I like these.
And let us know if you've read any of these books, and tell us what you thought. Like any of the books that we liked that y'all thought sucked.
All right, and look forward to future content from us. Like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.